New York City is expensive. It's been expensive for decades, but prices have accelerated sharply since the 90s, and in more recent years, things have got downright absurd. The median asking rent in Manhattan is up 85% since 2021, up from $2,700 per month to now almost $5,000 per month. Major firms in tech and finance have left or reduced their New York City footprint due to high costs. And I sometimes look at how much more space I could get in LA for what I pay to live here in New York. It's saying something when I look at Los Angeles as a cheaper comparison. But when I think about the extreme end of New York's high cost, one neighborhood in particular stands above all others. The neighborhood where it seems like everyone wants to live, especially women in their 20s wearing this exact outfit. More on that later. The neighborhood with endless, trendy, and renowned restaurants, cute bars selling $20 cocktails, and photogenic baked goods with a 1-hour line. And the neighborhood with beautiful tree-lined streets and low-rise quintessential brownstone charm. It is none other than the West Village. Now, New York is expensive, but the West Village, a whole other level. The median asking rent here is $6,000 per month, $1,000 more than the overall Manhattan average, which is already absurd. But why? Well, there are some obvious reasons. It's beautiful and quaint, incredibly centrally located, and it has the scene. But I figured that whatever makes the West Village so expensive today must go deeper than just vibes. And it does. It goes all the way back to 1811 to a decision about city urban planning that people didn't think would matter. And a woman in the 1960s who fought to save this neighborhood and accidentally made it unobtainable. Let's discuss. First, let's get oriented. The West Village is located in the Manhattan borough of New York City, right here on the west side, and it's technically a smaller part of the broader Greenwich Village. The term West Village actually wasn't coined until the 1950s to distinguish the quieter western portion of Greenwich Village from the more heavily redeveloped eastern sections of today, near NYU and Washington Square Park. What really stands out on this map is that the West Village is a bunch of diagonal lines and triangles, very different compared to the strict 90-degree angle grid like its surrounding neighborhoods. After 5 years of living in New York, I rarely get turned around in the city, but when I do, it is almost always in the West Village because it's not on the grid. But why isn't it? Well, the 1807 Act establishing the Commissioner's Plan, which was finalized in 1811, was focused on organizing the future development of Manhattan north of Houston Street. So, for practical reasons, the plan intentionally left out already established irregularly shaped streets of Lower Manhattan to reduce disruption. This included not just the West Village, which was already populous at the time, but also other dense established neighborhoods below Houston Street, including Chinatown and Little Italy. Now, what was the West Village's significance at the time, and why was it already populous? Thanks for asking, because I read a lot about it and it's super interesting. During the late 1700s and early 1800s, Greenwich Village was considered a safe rural retreat from yellow fever outbreaks and what was often described as a nightmare of crowded, filthy conditions in the southernmost tip of Manhattan, what is now the financial district. Residents would flee from disease epidemics up to Greenwich Village, which by contrast was at higher elevation, had fresher air, and just fewer people at the time. Well, it didn't take long for this influx of people escaping epidemics to transform Greenwich Village from a quiet collection of farms into a densely populated residential neighborhood itself. And this is why it was already established enough to get left out of the 1811 Commissioner's Plan that established the famous New York City grid, leaving myself and millions of other New Yorkers to get turned around in its cute little maze of triangles. And if you've ever tried to apartment hunt in New York City, you know that it's basically a part-time job. You've got 17 street easy tabs open. These days you might have Craigslist and Reddit tabs open too. Desperate times. You're trying to compare neighborhoods, there's a walkability score you don't really trust, and you're supposed to sift through all of that while being ready to commit on the spot. So I built this, a neighborhood comparison dashboard that puts rent, walkability, and transit all side by side using Emergent. And here's why this is so great. You can go over here and actually adjust these sliders, and then it dynamically changes these different neighborhoods for you to consider. Now, these are fancy schmancy ones, so let's lower the cost. Nice. So when you actually click into one of these, let's click into one of my favorites,
East Village, that's where I used to live.
You can see sort of a one-liner on what makes this neighborhood famous, a few different tags, and I can vouch for all of these. The average monthly rent for studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom, you do not get this view in Street Easy, let me tell you. The nearby subway lines and bus lines, and it just looks clean and chic. Anyway, highly recommend trying Emergent for yourself, and it's so easy. I literally described what I wanted in plain English, and it just built it into this real web app. Emergent lets anyone build a fully functional, deployed web app from a plain English prompt, with the back end, login, and data all handled for you. So if you have an idea for a little tool that will make your life easier, you can just have it. If you want to try it, there's a link in my description. You can start from a blank prompt, or honestly, you could just steal my idea and build your own neighborhood dashboard. Now, onto the historic culture of the West Village. In the early 1900s, the West Village went on to become the birthplace of American Bohemia, home of the poets and peasants, as the newspapers would report it. Cheap rents attracted writers, artists, and political radicals who wanted to live among the winding, non-grid streets that felt physically separate from the rest of the conformist industrial city. The names of the people who called the village home at one point or another almost reads like an American literature syllabus. Mark Twain, Walt Whitman, Edgar Allan Poe, Isadora Duncan, William Faulkner, Eugene O'Neill, Jackson Pollock, and then later people like Andy Warhol, Salvador Dali. And importantly, the earlier of these residents were not here because it was prestigious, it's because they could afford to be. After the early Bohemians came the 1930s through 50s wave of jazz, the Beat Generation, and folk musicians. Barney Josephson opened Cafe Society in 1938 with the intent of creating the first racially mixed jazz club in New York, which at the time was a statement that this neighborhood didn't abide by the rest of the segregationist rules that governed the rest of the city's nightlife. For its opening night, he found a then unknown singer by the name of Billie Holiday. The Village Vanguard opened in 1935 and is the world's oldest continuously operating jazz club, hosting icons like John Coltrane and Miles Davis. Then came the key figures of the Beat Generation, which was a 1950s countercultural literary movement led by Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and William S. Burroughs, who all met at a bar in the West Village. Their works rejected post-World War II conformity, materialism, and traditional literary forms, ideas that would go on to heavily influence the 1960s hippie counterculture. And not long after this would folk musicians like Bob Dylan and Joan Baez be playing their guitars in coffee houses for just a couple dollars to small crowds. Now, let's stop for just a second to think about the fact that these incredibly influential writers, artists, musicians were coexisting and bouncing ideas off of each other within just a few of these blocks. Yes, over the course of the decades, but still, it is staggering. Now, the culture that was born from these people would, of course, evolve or devolve from some perspectives. For example, Jack Kerouac, at the end of his life, famously despised the hippies and viewed them as a degenerate, pretentious parody or corruption of the original Beat Generation. But there is no denying that the West Village created a social microcosm of post-war New York, restless, idealistic, and diverse, that would go on to influence American counterculture from feminism to civil rights to rock and roll for decades to come. And finally, the historical culture of the West Village is incomplete without the 1969 Stonewall riots. When the police raided Stonewall Inn, a gay bar in the village, the patrons fought back. 4 nights of demonstrations that are now widely considered the single most important catalyst of the modern LGBTQ rights in the United States. In 2016, Stonewall became the first national monument in the US dedicated to LGBTQ history. As we can see, a place so steeped in culture made the West Village a neighborhood worth fighting to preserve. And someone did fight for it. Here's what happened. All right, going back to our original question, why is the West Village so expensive? Well, this is where things get interesting. In the 1960s, Robert Moses, an urban planner who was responsible for developing many of the highways and bridges in and around New York City, not without plenty pushback, but that's another video, declared the West Village a slum to justify redevelopment. Moses aimed to demolish the area for new construction, including modern apartment towers and through traffic roads. Well, as you can see, that didn't happen. The West Village is one of the few places in Manhattan that doesn't have any of those modern glass high-rises. So what stopped Moses' plan? An urban activist and author by the name of Jane Jacobs. Jacobs, who was living on Hudson Street in the West Village at the time, headed the committee to save the West Village in 1961, claiming that Moses' plan would destroy the vibrant neighborhood fabric and displace thousands of families. Jacobs' efforts were successful, leading to the 1969 decision by the New York City Land Landmarks Preservation Commission to designate the West Village as a historic district. This landmark decision would preserve over 2,000 structures, and redevelopment in the area became severely restricted. You can probably see where this is going. To this day, developers must preserve the main facade and aesthetics of these historic buildings in the West Village, even during renovation. You can change them all you want on the inside, which they certainly do. The outside has to stay the same. The result is a neighborhood that looks almost identical to how it did 200 years ago. The beautiful low-rise Federal and Greek Revival row houses built in the 1820s and 1840s, the original brownstone stoops, the cast iron railings, the cornices, the cobblestone streets, some of the oldest surviving architecture in Manhattan, left frozen exactly how Jane Jacobs left it. I think that it is indisputably one of the most beautiful places in New York City, which is also one of the reasons why it has become so expensive and unobtainable for most people. Let's talk about it. Since Jane Jacobs' successful efforts to preserve the West Village, there has been virtually no new construction. Just 3 new construction filings have been made since 2013. The median construction year for buildings in the West Village is 1938. And get this, the West Village actually saw a net drop in the amount of apartments through the decade until 2020, losing between half a unit to 6 units per acre because so many ultra-rich residents have combined apartments into single mega mansion townhomes. To put this lack of development into perspective, Hudson Yards, Long Island City, the Greenpoint waterfront, and downtown Brooklyn have added up to 65 new units per acre in the same period. The contrast is stark. So what happens when there is severely restricted housing supply in a beautiful, quaint, little neighborhood, plus a growing economy and New York City population with high income earners? You guessed it, extremely high prices. And this is the irony of it all. Jane Jacobs herself advocated for preserving older buildings specifically because their lack of economic value made them affordable for poor residents. In this regard, she saw these old buildings as guarantors of social diversity. At the time, she found it unimaginable that her efforts would be the exact ones to facilitate gentrification of the neighborhood. This has led to a mixed bag of criticism towards Jacobs. Some find her initial planning flawed because of course this would happen when you restrict new development in a highly desirable growing neighborhood. Others are more forgiving, remembering her good intentions to preserve a culturally rich, diverse, picturesque neighborhood, and this being an unfortunate but unexpected byproduct of that. Regardless of where you fall in that matter, what the West Village is today is almost unrecognizable, save for the buildings themselves, compared to the diverse neighborhood that Jacobs fought to protect. What's left is a neighborhood that has become so expensive that it selects for a specific type of person who can afford it. So, who exactly are those people today? Buckle up. The modern culture of the West Village is notorious. The recent viral article, "It Must Be Nice to Be a West Village Girl," swept the internet and social media, seeding further videos, skits, discussions, Reddit threads, all about how the neighborhood has become unbearably vanilla. And I don't just mean white, although yes, the West Village is 82% white compared to the overall city average of 31%, but rather the pervasive monoculture of the 20-something woman who walks around wearing the West Village uniform, a white tank top, light wash baggy jeans, and Adidas Sambas, or a matching workout set with an iced matcha latte from Blank Street in hand, and hair slicked back into a tight ponytail. I did my best to dress the part for today. I don't know if the leather jacket is part of the uniform, but I improvised and I think I'm pretty close. She works in finance, marketing, or tech, and often has active social media accounts on the side. She has seemingly endless disposable income, goes to Pilates classes, wears Cartier love bracelets, goes to the hip restaurants and bars, and posts photos of the $20 Aperol spritzes that she gets on her Instagram stories. She moved to the West Village because girls that she knew from college told her to, and she watched Sex and the City to prepare. The West Village girlies are, as one of them told the writer, totally unironically, proudly basic. Of course, it's not just women. There is also the stereotypical male equivalent who is typically a 20-something finance bro who, in his own way, is just as uniform. And then there's the other end of the market, the celebrities and business people who own their West Village homes. Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, Sarah Jessica Parker, Taylor Swift, Julianne Moore, not to mention all the hedge fund owners and tech founders. The West Village has become one of the most celebrity-dense neighborhoods in the entire country. So that's who the West Village selects demographics for today, the affluent 20-something and the A-listers. But before I give you my take on all of this, I was lucky enough to get a quick chat with a resident who's lived here for over 50 years to hear how he thinks things have changed. Here's my little microphone.
Tiny microphone.
Tiny microphone.
Yes. Okay.
Gary, nice to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you. And
beautiful.
indeed, it has changed, but it's also remnants of everything that was. When you get older, you look back and you think the sadness of so many things that are gone. And I really mourn those things, but the best years of your life when you're very, very young. Everything's ahead of you. And so at your age,
Yep.
It must be a wonderful place to be in the village. And it's still a wonderful place for me, but I feel that it's past me. And I mourn that, but I'm really mourning my youth is what I'm doing. And the village is a beautiful place to live, and it's gorgeous.
Undoubtedly.
Unfortunately, it's so expensive. And this used to be a very, very gay neighborhood.
Right.
And there's still gay people here, but things move, progress, different types of people move in. Unfortunately, this is just pretty much all white, rich people.
But it sounds like the sort of the beauty and the special charm of the West Village that you loved initially is still makes it worth living here.
Oh, it's a wonderful place to live.
Absolutely.
There's lovely things to do here.
Of course.
But what's gone? I mean, you wouldn't believe the restaurants that used to be.
Really?
And the affordability that it used to be.
I appreciate getting your take.
Yeah, it'll always be here.
Yeah. Well,
Nice to meet you.
yes, thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right, as much as I enjoyed reading that article for entertainment purposes and summarizing the West Village girly archetype to you, I do think it's probably a little too easy to be snarky towards these people or assume that they are inherently bland as people. I'm more so of the opinion that every decade has its own version of the aspirational young person flooding the West Village, and that people should just let them have their fun without being so bothered by it. And also, who can really blame them? They just moved to the city from college, they're starting to make a little bit of money and or have parents who help them out, and they want to live in the it neighborhood for the few years that they are here. Story as old as time. However, after reading a ton of Reddit threads, there does seem to be one interesting difference this time. In the Sex and the City era, you at least had 4 different archetypes to choose from and then put your own spin on. Carrie Bradshaw was a lot of things, but she was not a formulaic dresser. Today, as someone in that Reddit thread pointed out, everything gets averaged out to the most neutrally aspirational ideal. Everything has its hard or weird edges sanded off. Someone else noted that the West Village girly is the TikTokification of society, a sort of flattening effect where a lot of individuality has been lost in the process. Hence, everyone wearing the same outfit and enjoying the same hobbies. Interesting take though, I kind of buy it. And finally, there is an interesting irony that the article points out. When everyone is the main character, is anyone? A neighborhood that was historically defined by radical individuality, people who came here specifically to be different, has become the preferred backdrop for a content aesthetic that rewards sameness. Will it last forever or is it cyclical? Several longtime residents weighed in. As one of them put it, I can't help but think that it's all cyclical and that sameness will eventually give way to more quirks and variety. The West Village has reinvented itself before, after all. So, why is the West Village so darn expensive? Because in 1811, it was left off the grid. Because in 1961, someone fought to keep it exactly as it was. Because those two things together made it beautiful, scarce, and desirable, all in the right order. And then Carrie Bradshaw and the internet made sure everyone knew about it. The neighborhood that was once too cheap for anyone except the bohemians to care about is now too expensive for almost anyone to afford. But hey, it's beautiful to walk through. What other New York City neighborhood should I investigate next? Let me know in the comments, and please hit subscribe if you enjoy this. It's totally free. Hit thumbs up too if you're feeling crazy. I researched a lot for this video, so I would really appreciate it. And until next time, Turtle out. I'll wait for that. Classic. Say TikTokification 10 times fast. TikTokification, 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 TikTok. It's actually not that hard.
Are you Taylor?
Yeah.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, thanks. That's so nice.
I watched your Walking Across Manhattan video.
Oh my, I appreciate it. Thanks for saying hi. Okay. Not so quaint after all. This is dude on stilts. That's so crazy. Oh, only in New York. Howdy. If you enjoyed this video, I would bet at least $6,000 per month that you will also like this one. Check it out. I'm just waiting for Sarah Jessica Parker to pass me, but she hasn't yet. Rude.